What would you do if the grave of a dead woman changed its location every single night? In a forgotten village called Black Hollow, an old cemetery hid a terrifying secret. Every morning, one grave appeared in a different place. No one knew who moved it. No one dared to investigate until one man decided to uncover the truth. What he discovered would awaken an ancient curse, unleash a terrifying creature known as the Gravekeeper, and reveal a mystery buried for more than a century. But the most frightening part, the grave wasn't moving by itself. It was searching for something. Turn off the lights, stay close, and prepare yourself for tonight's terrifying tale. The graveyard that moved every night. Welcome to Nightlore, where every shadow hides a secret and every story becomes a nightmare. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more chilling horror stories. The village of Black Hollow was surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills. At the edge of the village stood an old graveyard known as Raven's Rest for generations. Villagers avoided it after sunset. Many strange stories were told about the place. Some claimed to hear whispers among the tombstones. Others spoke of shadowy figures wandering between the graves at midnight. But no one had ever dared to investigate until Ethan Carter arrived. Ethan was a young journalist looking for unusual stories. He had heard rumors about Raven's Rest and decided to spend a few weeks in Black Hollow. On his first evening, he visited the graveyard. The setting sun painted the sky orange as he walked through the rusted iron gate. Ancient tombstones stood crooked among the weeds. He photographed several graves and carefully wrote down their locations. One grave caught his attention. It belonged to a woman named Eleanor Graves, who had died in 1893. Something about the grave felt unsettling. The stone appeared newer than the others. Ethan took several pictures before leaving. The next morning, he returned. The moment he stepped inside the graveyard, he froze. Eleanor Graves' tombstone was gone. Confused, Ethan searched the area. Then he found it. The grave had somehow moved nearly 20 meters away from where it had stood the previous evening. Ethan checked his photos repeatedly. There was no mistake. The grave had changed locations overnight. At first, he assumed someone had played a prank. But moving an entire grave would require heavy machinery, and nobody in the village had reported hearing anything. As he stared at the tombstone, a cold wind swept through the graveyard. Then he noticed something carved into the back of the stone, a message he was certain hadn't been there before. It moves because it searches. A chill ran down his spine. For the first time, Ethan wondered if the stories about Raven's Rest were true. And he had no idea that this was only the beginning. Ethan could not stop thinking about the message. It moves because it searches. The words echoed in his mind throughout the day. Back at the small inn where he was staying, he spread his photographs across the table. He compared every image, checking for signs of manipulation or mistakes. There were none. The grave had definitely moved. Determined to uncover the truth, Ethan returned to Raven's Rest that evening carrying a camera, a flashlight, and a notebook. The sun disappeared behind the hills as darkness slowly covered the cemetery. Most villagers locked their doors before nightfall. Ethan was the only person walking toward the graveyard. As he entered through the rusted gate, the air felt colder than before. The silence was unnatural. No insects chirped. No owls called. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Ethan located Eleanor Graves' tombstone and placed small wooden markers around it. If the grave moved again, he would have proof. He then hid behind a large oak tree overlooking the site. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Midnight came. Still nothing. Ethan began to wonder if he was wasting his time. Then, at exactly 12:17 a.m., the ground trembled. A faint vibration spread through the cemetery. The wooden markers rattled. Ethan gripped his camera. The earth beneath Eleanor's grave began to crack. Slowly, silently, the tombstone shifted. His heart pounded. The entire grave was moving. Not quickly, not violently, but steadily, like something beneath the ground was dragging it forward. Ethan snapped photograph after photograph. The grave traveled several feet before stopping. Then everything became still again. The trembling ceased. The silence returned. For several moments, Ethan could only stare. He had just witnessed the impossible. Suddenly, his flashlight flickered. A strange sound drifted through the darkness, whispering. At first, it sounded like wind. Then he realized it was voices. Hundreds of voices, speaking at once. Their words were impossible to understand. The whispers seemed to come from every grave in the cemetery. Ethan's blood ran cold. Then all the voices suddenly stopped. A single voice remained, clear, close, right behind him. A woman's voice, soft and sorrowful. "Help me find him." Ethan spun around. No one was there. The graveyard stood empty beneath the moonlight. His breathing became rapid. The voice had sounded real. Too real. As he turned back toward Eleanor's grave, something else caught his attention. Fresh markings had appeared in the dirt where the grave had moved. A trail. As though the grave was following a path leading toward the deepest part of the cemetery, toward a section of Raven's Rest that did not appear on any map. A section hidden by darkness and ancient trees. Ethan stared into the shadows. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a pale figure standing among the graves, watching him. Then it vanished. Ethan knew he should leave. Every instinct told him to run. But curiosity was stronger than fear. Tomorrow night, he would follow the trail. And he was about to discover why the grave moved every night. A secret buried for more than a century was waiting in the darkness. Ethan barely slept. The image of the moving grave and the woman's voice haunted him throughout the night. Help me find him. Who was she? And who was she searching for? The next morning, Ethan visited the village library, hoping to find records about Eleanor Graves. The building was old and dusty, filled with shelves of yellowed books and forgotten documents. An elderly librarian named Martha watched him curiously. When Ethan mentioned Raven's Rest, her expression changed instantly. Fear flashed across her face. "You should leave that place alone," she whispered. "Why?" Ethan asked. Martha hesitated before speaking. "Because some graves were never meant to be found." Those words only deepened Ethan's curiosity. After hours of searching through old newspapers and death records, he finally discovered something strange. There was no official record of Eleanor Graves' burial. Her death certificate existed. Her name appeared in census records, but there was no document showing where she had been buried. It was as if someone had deliberately erased part of her history. Then Ethan found a faded newspaper from 1893. A small article caught his attention. "Local woman disappears under mysterious circumstances." The article described Eleanor Graves as a schoolteacher who vanished one stormy night. Her body was never found. No suspects were identified. The case remained unsolved. Ethan stared at the article. If Eleanor's body was never found, then whose grave was moving through Raven's Rest? That evening, clouds covered the moon. A thick fog rolled across Black Hollow. Despite the worsening weather, Ethan returned to the cemetery. The trail left by Eleanor's grave was still visible. He followed it deeper into the graveyard. The farther he walked, the older the graves became. Many tombstones were broken. Others had sunk into the earth. Eventually, he reached a section hidden behind a wall of twisted trees. His flashlight beam swept across the darkness. Then he stopped. There were dozens of graves here, yet none of them appeared on the cemetery maps. Their stones were worn smooth by time. Most names had faded away. The forgotten dead. A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees. The fog thickened. Ethan felt as though invisible eyes were watching him. Then he saw it. At the center of the hidden cemetery stood a massive stone monument. Unlike the other graves, it had no name, only a single inscription: "The one who must never be found." A chill crawled down Ethan's spine. The ground around the monument was covered in deep scratches, as if countless graves had been dragged toward it over the years. Then his flashlight flickered. Once, twice, and went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. Ethan reached for his spare flashlight. Before he could switch it on, he heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching through the dead leaves behind him. Someone or something was approaching. Ethan turned. A pale figure stood between the graves. A woman. Her long dress fluttered in the cold wind. Her face was hidden beneath strands of dark hair. Even from a distance, Ethan somehow knew who she was. Eleanor Graves. The woman raised one trembling hand. Then she pointed directly at the nameless monument and spoke in a voice barely louder than a whisper. "He is waking." At that exact moment, a loud crack echoed beneath the ground. The earth around the monument began to split open, and something deep below started to move. The earth shook violently beneath Ethan's feet. Cracks spread across the ground surrounding the nameless monument. Dead leaves danced through the air as a freezing wind tore through the forgotten graveyard. Ethan stumbled backward, his heart hammered in his chest. The pale figure of Eleanor Graves remained standing among the mist. Her eyes were fixed on the monument. "He is waking," she repeated. Then she vanished. Not by running, not by fading into the darkness. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Ethan stood alone. The cracking sound beneath the earth grew louder. Suddenly, a section of ground collapsed. A dark hole opened beside the monument. The smell that escaped from it was unbearable. Rotting earth, decay, and something much older. Something that should have remained buried forever. Gathering his courage, Ethan switched on his spare flashlight and approached the opening. The beam revealed a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. Ancient symbols were carved into the walls, symbols unlike anything he had ever seen. As he examined them, he noticed one repeated over and over, a circle containing a single black eye. The same symbol appeared on the base of the monument above. Someone had built this place intentionally. Someone had hidden something here, and someone had wanted it to stay hidden for a long time. Ethan hesitated. Every instinct warned him to leave, but answers lay below. Taking a deep breath, he descended the staircase. The air grew colder with every step. The silence became heavier. Soon he reached the bottom. His flashlight revealed a vast underground chamber. Rows of stone pillars stretched into darkness. At the center stood a large stone coffin. Chains wrapped around it from every direction. Dozens of rusted locks held the chains in place. Ethan slowly approached. The coffin itself was covered with names. Hundreds of names, each one carved by hand. As he read them, a terrifying realization struck him. Every name belonged to someone buried in Raven's Rest, including Eleanor Graves. The chains rattled. Ethan froze. The sound came from inside the coffin. Something moved. A slow scraping sound echoed from within. Then came a deep breath, as though a sleeping creature had awakened. Ethan backed away. The chains shook harder. One lock snapped open. The metallic crack echoed through the chamber. Then another lock broke. And another. The sound of breaking metal filled the darkness. Panic surged through Ethan. Whatever was inside that coffin was getting free. Suddenly, a voice whispered behind him, "Leave now." Ethan spun around. Eleanor stood there once more. This time her face was visible. She looked pale and exhausted. Tears streamed down her ghostly cheeks. "You cannot stop him alone," she said. "Who is he?" Ethan asked. The ghost lowered her head. Fear filled her eyes. "The Gravekeeper." The chains exploded apart. The coffin lid shifted. A hand emerged from the darkness within. Its skin was gray and cracked like stone. Its fingers were impossibly long, and its nails looked like rusted blades. A deep growl echoed through the chamber. The creature was free. Eleanor grabbed Ethan's arm. For the first time, he felt the icy touch of a ghost. "Run," she whispered. And from inside the coffin, two glowing red eyes slowly opened. The red eyes glowed in the darkness like burning coals. Ethan's body froze. The creature inside the coffin slowly sat upright. Its movements were stiff, unnatural. as though its body had not moved in centuries. The chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The remaining chains slid from the stone coffin and clattered onto the floor. For a brief moment, silence filled the underground tomb. Then the Gravekeeper stood. It was taller than any man Ethan had ever seen. Its body was wrapped in rotting burial cloth stained black with age. Fragments of rusted armor hung from its shoulders. Its face was hidden beneath a cracked iron mask. Only those terrible red eyes could be seen. The Gravekeeper turned its head toward Ethan, slowly, deliberately, as if it had been waiting for him. A low growl escaped from behind the mask. The sound echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. Ethan backed away. Every instinct screamed at him to flee. Beside him, Eleanor looked terrified. "You must leave," she whispered. "If he finds what he is searching for, Black Hollow will be destroyed." "What is he searching for?" Ethan asked. Eleanor's face darkened. "His heart." Before Ethan could ask another question, the Gravekeeper took a step forward. The ground shook. Then another step. And another. The creature was coming toward them. Eleanor grabbed Ethan's arm. "Run!" The two rushed toward the staircase. Behind them, the Gravekeeper released a roar that shook the entire underground chamber. Stone pillars cracked. Chunks of rock crashed to the floor. Ethan sprinted up the stairs as fast as he could. The sound of heavy footsteps followed behind. Closer, closer, closer. Finally, he burst out of the underground passage into the cold night air. Eleanor emerged beside him. The entrance collapsed moments later. Tons of earth and stone crashed down, sealing the staircase. For a moment, Ethan felt relief. Then the ground began to tremble again. A massive crack spread across the forgotten graveyard. The nameless monument shattered into pieces, and from beneath the earth, a giant gray hand burst through the soil. The Gravekeeper was still coming. The next morning, Ethan returned to the village and told Martha everything. The old librarian listened in silence. When he finished, she looked pale. "I feared this day would come," she said. "You know about the Gravekeeper?" Ethan asked. Martha nodded. Then she led him into a locked room hidden behind the library. Inside were ancient journals and records dating back hundreds of years. She carefully opened one of the oldest books. The pages were brittle with age. At the center was a drawing. The same iron-masked figure Ethan had seen underground. The Gravekeeper. According to the journal, the creature had once been a man. A powerful sorcerer named Malachor Vane. Centuries ago, he became obsessed with conquering death itself. He performed forbidden rituals in Black Hollow. The rituals granted him unnatural life, but they also transformed him into something monstrous. When the villagers discovered what he had become, they united to stop him. Unable to kill him, they removed his heart. The heart was sealed in a sacred container and hidden somewhere within Black Hollow. Without it, Malachor could never regain his full power. The villagers buried him beneath Raven's Rest and built the monument above his prison. For centuries, the curse remained dormant. Until now. Ethan stared at the ancient illustration. A horrifying realization formed in his mind. "The moving graves ... double quotes," he said. Martha nodded. Eleanor and the others were searching for the hidden heart. The graves moved every night because the spirits were trying to find it before Malachor could. A cold silence filled the room. Then a church bell suddenly rang outside. Once, twice, 3 times. Martha's eyes widened with fear. The bell tower only rings like that for one reason. What reason? Ethan asked. Before she could answer, terrified screams erupted from outside. Villagers were running through the streets, pointing toward the cemetery. Ethan rushed to the window. His blood turned to ice. Far in the distance, above Raven's Rest, a dark figure stood among the graves, watching the village. The Gravekeeper had escaped, and now he was searching for his heart. Panic spread through Black Hollow. Villagers rushed into their homes, bolting doors and covering windows. Parents gathered their children. The church bells continued to ring across the valley. From the library window, Ethan watched the dark figure standing motionless in Raven's Rest, the Gravekeeper, Malachor Vane. Even from miles away, his presence felt wrong. The sky above the cemetery had darkened unnaturally. Thick black clouds swirled overhead, blocking the sunlight. Martha quickly shut the curtains. "We don't have much time," she said. "What happens if he finds his heart?" Ethan asked. Martha swallowed hard. "The legends say he will become immortal again, stronger than before, strong enough to turn every soul in Black Hollow into part of his army." A chill ran through Ethan. "So how do we stop him?" The old librarian walked to a dusty cabinet and removed a leather-bound journal. "It tells where the heart was hidden." Ethan's eyes widened. "You know where it is." "Not exactly," Martha replied. "But this journal contains clues." She opened the ancient book. Inside were sketches of landmarks around Black Hollow, accompanied by strange riddles. One passage caught Ethan's attention. "Where water reflects no stars, beneath the roots of the oldest guardian, the heart shall sleep." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. Martha pointed to an old map. "There is only one place that matches the description. At the northern edge of the forest stood a forgotten lake known as Mirror Lake. Locals avoided it. The water was so dark that stars never reflected on its surface. And beside the lake grew the oldest tree in the region, a gigantic oak believed to be more than 1,000 years old." "The heart is there," Ethan said. Martha nodded. "But Malachor will be searching for it too." As evening approached, Ethan packed supplies and headed into the forest. To his surprise, he wasn't alone. Eleanor appeared beside him on the forest path. Her ghostly figure shimmered in the fading light. "You came back," Ethan said. "I must," she replied softly. "Why are you helping me?" For a moment, sadness filled her eyes. "Because I failed once." She looked away. "Malachor murdered me when I discovered his secret. My spirit has searched for his heart ever since." Ethan finally understood. The moving grave, the whispers, the endless search. All of it had been Eleanor's attempt to stop the monster who had taken her life. Together, they continued deeper into the forest. Night fell quickly. The trees grew thicker. The air became colder. Hours later, they reached Mirror Lake. The water was black as ink. Not a single star reflected upon its surface. Beside the shore stood the ancient oak tree. Its massive roots twisted across the ground like giant serpents. Ethan approached cautiously. Then he noticed something. Fresh footprints. Large footprints. Leading directly toward the tree. Malachor had already been there. Panic surged through him. They were too late. Suddenly, Eleanor pointed toward the roots. "Look!" Between the roots, hidden beneath layers of soil, Ethan spotted a small stone box covered in ancient symbols. The heart. It was still there. Relief flooded through him, but the feeling lasted only seconds. A deep voice echoed from the darkness behind them. At last, Ethan turned. Standing among the trees was the Gravekeeper. His red eyes burned in the night. His iron mask gleamed beneath the moonlight. And behind him stood dozens of ghostly figures emerging from the shadows. The souls he had already claimed. Malachor slowly extended one hand. The stone box began sliding across the ground toward him. The heart was calling to its master. Eleanor stepped in front of Ethan. For the first time, there was no fear in her eyes, only determination. "If he takes that heart," she whispered, "everything ends tonight." The box continued moving toward Malachor, and the final battle for Black Hollow was about to begin. The stone box scraped across the ground. Slowly, relentlessly, it moved toward Malachor as if pulled by an invisible force. Ethan lunged forward and grabbed it. The moment his hands touched the box, a surge of energy shot through his body. Images flooded his mind. He saw terrified villagers from centuries ago. He saw Malachor performing dark rituals beneath a blood-red moon. He saw Eleanor trying to expose him before being captured. And finally, he saw the villagers tearing Malachor's heart from his chest and sealing it away beneath the ancient oak. The vision ended. Ethan staggered backward, clutching the box. The Gravekeeper let out a furious roar. The forest trembled. Birds exploded from the treetops and vanished into the night. Around him, the ghostly souls began moving forward. Their empty eyes glowed with unnatural light. Eleanor stepped between Ethan and the approaching spirits. "You must protect the heart," she shouted. "What about you?" Ethan asked. A sad smile crossed her face. "I've been waiting over 100 years for this moment." The spirits attacked. A wave of pale figures rushed across the shore of Mirror Lake. Eleanor raised her arms. A brilliant silver light erupted from her body. The charging ghosts recoiled. Some vanished instantly. Others screamed as they were pushed back into the darkness. For the first time, Ethan saw the true strength of the spirit who had spent a century fighting Malachor. But the Gravekeeper kept advancing. Nothing stopped him. Each step left deep cracks in the earth. His red eyes remained fixed on the box, on his heart. Ethan looked around desperately. There had to be a way to destroy it. Then he remembered something from Martha's journal. One final line he had almost ignored. What was taken by darkness may only be ended where no reflection exists. His eyes widened. Mirror Lake. The lake where no stars reflected. The place where the heart had been hidden. The place where it could be destroyed. "Eleanor," he shouted. "I know how to stop him." She glanced back. Understanding flashed across her face. The lake. Ethan nodded. Together, they ran toward the shoreline. Behind them, Malachor roared. The forest seemed to come alive around him. Trees twisted. Branches snapped. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the ground. The monster was using every ounce of his power. The stone box shook violently in Ethan's arms. Cracks spread across its surface. Something inside was trying to escape. The heart was awakening. Ethan reached the edge of the black water. The lake looked endless. Cold mist drifted across its surface. For a moment, fear gripped him. If he failed now, Black Hollow would be lost forever. The box suddenly burst open. A dark red heart emerged. It floated in the air, beating. Thump, thump, thump. Each heartbeat echoed like thunder. Malachor stopped moving. His glowing eyes widened. For the first time, Ethan saw desperation in the monster. The heart slowly drifted toward him, drawn to its owner. "Ethan!" Eleanor screamed. Now, with every ounce of strength he had, Ethan grabbed the floating heart and hurled it toward the center of Mirror Lake. Time seemed to slow. The heart spun through the air. Malachor lunged forward with an earth-shaking roar. His clawed hand stretched toward it, almost reaching it. Almost. Then the heart struck the black water. The lake exploded with blinding light. A shockwave tore across the forest, and Malachor screamed. A scream so terrible that it seemed to shake the heavens themselves. The blinding light spread across Mirror Lake like a second sunrise. Ethan shielded his eyes. The water churned violently as waves of silver energy erupted from its depths. At the center of the lake, Malachor's heart floated above the surface. Cracks appeared across it. One, then another, and another. The heartbeat that had echoed through the forest began to weaken. Thump, thump, thump. Malachor stumbled forward. For the first time since his awakening, the Gravekeeper looked afraid. No, he roared. His voice shook the trees. "You do not understand what you are destroying." The monster charged toward the lake. The ground split beneath his feet. Dark energy poured from his body like smoke. Eleanor stood in his path. Her ghostly form glowed brighter than ever before. Behind her, hundreds of spirits began appearing throughout the forest. Men, women, children, all victims of Malachor, all souls trapped by his curse. For generations, they had waited for this moment. The spirits joined hands. A wall of silver light rose before the Gravekeeper. Malachor slammed into it. The impact sent shockwaves across the lake. But the barrier held. The spirits pushed back. Every soul he had imprisoned was now fighting against him. Eleanor stepped forward. "You took our lives." The spirits echoed her words. "You stole our peace." The light intensified. Malachor staggered. Cracks began spreading across his iron mask. "No!" he screamed. The heart above the lake shattered further. Pieces broke away and dissolved into the black water. The heartbeat weakened again. Thump, thump. Ethan watched in amazement. The curse was breaking. But it wasn't over yet. Suddenly, Malachor unleashed a blast of dark energy. The spirit barrier shattered. Ghosts were thrown in every direction. Several vanished instantly. Eleanor fell to her knees. The monster pushed forward once more, closer to the lake, closer to his heart. If he reached it now, everything would be lost. Ethan looked around desperately. Then he noticed something beneath the water. The shattered pieces of the heart were sinking, being pulled deeper and deeper into the darkness below. Mirror Lake itself was consuming them. The lake was finishing the job. It only needed more time. Malachor realized it too. With a deafening roar, he rushed toward the shore. Eleanor tried to stop him. He struck her aside. Her spirit flickered, almost disappearing. "Eleanor," Ethan shouted. She looked up weakly. "Don't let him reach the water, ... Malachor was only a few steps away now. The lake glowed beneath the moonlight. The remaining fragments of the heart were vanishing into the depths. The monster raised his clawed hand. One final leap would bring him to the lake. One final chance to save himself. Then Ethan did something he never thought he would. He stepped directly into Malachor's path. The Gravekeeper stopped. His red eyes locked onto Ethan. For a moment, neither moved. Then the monster smiled. A horrible smile behind the cracked iron mask. "You are brave," Malachor said. "But bravery will not save you." The lake behind them suddenly flashed with brilliant silver light. The final fragments of the heart disappeared beneath the water. A deep rumble echoed through the valley. Malachor's smile vanished. His eyes widened. He knew his heart was gone forever. And now the curse that had sustained him for centuries was finally ending. But as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Ethan noticed something strange. Near the shore, half buried in the mud, lay an ancient object, a small black key, one that had not been there before. Eleanor saw it too. Her smile faded. "There is still one secret left," she said softly, and then she looked toward the distant hills beyond Black Hollow, as though something hidden there had finally awakened. The first light of dawn spread across Mirror Lake. For the first time in living memory, the water reflected the sky. The curse was truly gone. The darkness that had haunted Black Hollow for centuries had finally been broken. Yet Ethan could not stop staring at the black key lying near the shore. It was old, older than anything he had seen in the underground chamber. Strange symbols covered its surface, the same symbols that had appeared beneath Raven's rest. Eleanor stood beside him, her ghostly form growing fainter with each passing moment. "You said there was one secret left," Ethan said. "What does this key open?" Eleanor gazed toward the distant hills beyond the village. Her expression became solemn. "Not a door." Ethan frowned. "Then what?" "A prison." A cold feeling settled in his stomach. "I thought Malachor was the prison." Eleanor shook her head. No, Malachor was the jailer. For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. The words echoed in his mind. Malachor was the jailer, not the prisoner, not the greatest threat. The jailer. Eleanor pointed toward the horizon. Long before Malachor sought immortality, something else existed beneath these lands. The morning wind stirred around them. Something ancient, something that fed on fear and death. Ethan looked at the key. "And this unlocks its prison." "Yes." Silence followed. Then Eleanor smiled gently. "But the prison remained sealed. Then why leave the key behind?" Eleanor's fading eyes met his. "Because every prison needs a guardian." Realization slowly dawned on him. The key had not appeared by accident. It had been left for someone. For him. Later that day, the villagers gathered in the town square. News of the curses and spread quickly. The black clouds above Raven's Rest vanished. The cemetery stood still. For the first time in more than a century, no graves moved during the night. No whispers echoed among the tombstones. No shadows wandered between the graves. The nightmare was over. Martha listened carefully as Ethan told her everything. When he showed her the black key, her face turned pale. "The legends were true," she whispered. "You know about this." The old librarian nodded. There were always stories about a second prison. A prison for what? Martha slowly closed her eyes. No one knows. Neither of them liked that answer. That evening, Ethan returned alone to Mirror Lake. The setting sun painted the water gold. He held the black key in his hand. For a long time, he simply stared at it. Part of him wanted to throw it into the deepest part of the lake, to ensure nobody could ever use it. But another part understood. Some secrets must be protected, not destroyed. A familiar voice drifted across the breeze. "Ethan." He turned. Eleanor stood beside the lake one final time. Her form was nearly transparent. The light beyond was waiting for her. "I suppose this is goodbye," Ethan said. She smiled. "Goodbye. Will I ever see you again?" Eleanor looked toward the stars beginning to appear above Black Hollow. "I hope not." Ethan laughed softly. "So do I." For the first time since meeting her, Eleanor laughed too. Then she stepped backward. Her form dissolved into thousands of tiny lights. The lights rose into the evening sky and disappeared among the stars. She was finally free. Years later, Ethan's book about Black Hollow would become famous. Most readers believed it was fiction, a ghost story, a legend, nothing more. Only Ethan knew the truth. And every year, on the anniversary of that night, he visited Mirror Lake. The black key remained hidden in a locked box known only to him. A responsibility passed from one guardian to another, because some secrets should never be forgotten, and some prisons should never be opened. As Ethan left the lake that final evening, he glanced once more toward the distant hills. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a faint light flicker beneath the earth. Then it vanished, leaving only silence and the uneasy feeling that some stories never truly end. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought for power, but to prevent power from falling into the wrong hands. Some secrets are dangerous not because they are evil, but because people are willing to do anything to possess them.